Hi, it's Margaret. We are here at the end of September, and it is time to do one of the tasks that I kind of dislike doing the most, and that is cleaning all of my pots and cell packs and trays at the end of the season. Now, over the years, I've used a couple of different methods to clean my seed starting supplies, and way back at the beginning, I simply rinsed them off in the laundry room and let them dry and put them away. That's when I only had a few things. Then one year I was hit with damping off, and I'm sure many of you know what that is. It is a fungus that essentially hits your tender seedlings shortly after they emerge from the soil, and you basically watch them keel over and die, and there's very little you can do once it sets in. That year I ended up losing a lot of seedlings. So what I started doing after that is I started sterilizing all of my equipment using a 10% bleach solution. And it was a very long and very tedious process. Now, I still use this process if I need to, and that's the key. It's if I need to. Now, I'm not going to go into using a bleach solution. I'm sure there are many other videos out there on how to use a bleach solution. You're essentially diluting bleach, about 10% bleach to 90% water, and you're letting all your stuff soak for about 20 minutes or so, rinsing it off. It's kind of a labor-intensive task. It's also a very time-consuming task because you're using a container. I would use a large garbage can, a plastic garbage can, and only so many pots and trays and so forth would fit in at any one time. And as my seed starting obsession grew, this task took longer and longer just because I just had so many cell packs, so many pots, and all that kind of stuff. So it would often take me multiple days to get this done. Then one year, I heard about the sanitizing power of the sun. Now, this was not in relation to cleaning pots, but it was just a general article about how you can use the sun to sanitize. And it got me thinking, why couldn't I use this to help with cleaning my pots and not make it such a difficult, cumbersome task? And that is what I started to do. And the new method that I use is so much easier. And so far, it has actually proven to be quite effective. Now, while the sun may not sterilize your pots, the shot of UV and the heat, it sanitizes them enough where I haven't had issues with damping off for a lot of years. And considering the time that my sunlight method saves me, which is many hours, and actually a couple of days, compared to using bleach, as well as the whole unpleasant aspect of having to not only deal with a bleachy solution, you have to put all your old clothes on, you have to wear gloves, all that kind of stuff, wear goggles as well, because you never know where that solution may splash, and then disposing of the bleachy water. Another big benefit that I find with using the sunlight method, although I didn't do that this year, is that you can do cleanup in batches. Whereas handling a bleach solution is something you don't want to do any more than once a year. If you're just literally using the sunlight to disinfect, you can do this in the spring, in the middle of summer, whenever you have a favorable day, so you don't end up with a huge chore at the end of the season. As I said, I didn't do that this year, but most of the time I do a few batches over the summer just to kind of lessen the load. Now, remember as well that using bleach to sanitize all your tools and equipment, it doesn't guarantee that you won't get damping off anyway, because you can still get it on soil that you purchase or when handling other plants. The bottom line, I guess, for me is that even though there might be just a slightly higher risk of damping off if I use sunshine versus bleach to disinfect my pots and cell trays, for me, it's worth it, especially since I've been successful using this method for years now. The one caveat, though, I would have with this method is if I did encounter damping off when I was starting seedlings in any given year, then that year I would still go back and disinfect everything with the bleach solution at the end of the season. So the supplies you need, super easy. So you need a scrub brush. I have my containers that need cleaning. And you need a nozzle that will give you a nice heavy spray, like I'm using like this. It's like a jet, so it really hits the containers well. So the strong jet from the sprayer nozzle here will get rid of 95% of the dirt, and I will not need to use the scrub brush for most stuff, but every once in a while I'll come across a pot or a pack that is a tiny little bit dirtier, where the dirt is a little bit more stubborn, or where the soil is a little bit more stubborn. And for that, I will have to get in there with a brush, but it's not very common. It's few and far between, I would say, for that. And lastly, you need somewhere to put everything when it's drying. And I like to use grass, and I prefer to use grass instead of mulch, because the mulch will get all over everything when it's wet. Whereas the grass provides kind of a nice cushy surface. It doesn't get stuff all over it when it's drying. The other thing that's important is that you do it, number one, on a sunny day. Number two, preferably on a very warm day. Today it's going to be about 25 degrees, which is perfect. And number three, preferably it is not a windy day. It is relatively calm, because you really don't want to be chasing your stuff around as it blows all over the yard. So relatively calm, sunny, hot, and those are the perfect conditions. An overview of what I do. So here I have a pot, for example, that has some soil left in it. I'm going to empty this either into a raised bed, or I will empty it into my compost first. And then basically I will just start grabbing one by one, and I will start spraying and or scrubbing. And then I will just leave everything out in a single layer on the grass to dry. And normally that only takes maybe a couple of hours at the most. After an hour or two, I'll flip it over and get it dry on the other side. But that's about it. Now, what I normally do is I will have one area, and I think I'll use this area here, where I will be spraying everything and rinsing it off. And then I will just start laying it out further out, because I don't want to be spraying a very dirty tray like this one and having the spray go on top of the clean trays. So generally speaking, I kind of designate one space for the spraying, and then I'll just plop all this stuff down a little bit further out. And don't forget to spray the back too, because especially when you have things stacked one in the other, the back will often get dirty as well. So this is actually really clean. This doesn't need to be scrubbed at all. So now I'm just going to carry on. I'm actually going to put the camera a little bit further away, because what I don't also want to do is spray the camera. Okay, I am almost done. So this is what I have so far. I put all of the containers right side up so that the sun can really kind of get in there. And like pots like this guy here and those little ones over there, those I put in these mesh trays so that they would stay more or less upright. So the only thing I have left to do is one little pile right over there, but I am going to wait until after lunch to do that. A lot of stuff is already dry already, and it's only been maybe half an hour, 40 minutes, something like that. I will come by and just flip everything over after lunch so that it has an opportunity to dry on the underside. But other than that, I think we're looking pretty good. Oh, something just landed on my shirt. Hold on one sec. I don't know if that's focused because the camera is upside down here, but I think it's a cicada, maybe? I don't know whether I'm focusing in on that or not. Hold on a sec. Let me turn. Oh, there we go. So, there you go. Yes. I think it's a cicada. Although I can't really tell because it's kind of, yeah, right underneath my line of sight. But there you go. You never know what'll come buzzing. But the real story is actually on the other side. I'm pretty sure this is bone set, and it is absolutely buzzing with life. The bees are everywhere on here. Everywhere. It's glorious. It kind of comes up all over the place, not in a really invasive kind of way, but more in a, I'll get one or two in a bed kind of way. And while most people would probably pull it up, I leave a chunk of it, specifically because of the insane bee activity it has in it at this time of year. The bees love it. Oh, the cicada's gone. Oh, actually, it's not gone. It is on my shoulder. Can we see this? The glare of the sun, I can't really see the screen very well, but I think I got it. Anyway, I think I better take it off of me before I go inside. Because, yeah, it's one thing to have this on me outside. It's another for it to be inside. And you know what? My cat would have a field day probably. And I wouldn't want this cicada to kind of come to an end because of that cat. So I better take it off me before I go in. Okay, so I ended up cleaning the rest of the pots that I had set aside here, and then I realized I had another bunch both in the basement in my growing area as well as in the shed. So I think I am going to leave these for tomorrow, and hopefully that'll be it, and I will be all done with the exception of the pots that I still have my annuals in, and those I will probably be doing next week. And I am done. I gotta say, this feels good. It feels really good when everything is done, everything is clean, everything is ready to go for next season. Now, the only other thing I have left to clean are all my tools and shovels and that kind of thing, but there really aren't a lot, and it isn't a big drawn-out process like this is, so I can just, you know, take an hour and get that done. Anyhow, thank you so much for joining me today, and we will see you next time. Bye!